I think rewatches in general is where the fun really begins. Listeners, we want to know, are you excited to rewatch Bad Batch with us? What are you noticing between the music, the production, character development, who your favorite characters are, favorite moments? I think this will be fun, we have to go back and rewatch these things and appreciate them. And there's so much in this universe to love. And yeah, why not go back and love it some more?
Krypton to Alderaan. Krypton to Alderaan. Krypton to Alderaan. Krypton to Alderaan.
Welcome everyone to Krypton to Alderaan. I am Joey, your Star Wars lover, and with me is Royish Goodlooks, your Star Wars song guy.
Hello, Joey. Hello, podcast.
Hello there, and we are the podcast that analyzes nerdy pop culture, but it's mostly Star Wars, and this episode is along the same lines, except that we are taking a step back in time. There's not a whole lot of Star Wars going on right now, so we're going to do something that we've never done, and that is analyze, breakdown, review, touch base on the first season of The Bad Batch, which is something that I'm very excited to get into because it was, by the end of season 3, I would claim one of my favorite series. Will it remain that way? We will see. That's enough of that. Let's punch it. So let's start with a classic Krypton to Alderaan intro here and do a vibe check. My recollection of this is when season 1 of The Bad Batch came out, you were not entranced by Star Wars animation at that point. So I would love to get a vibe check from you on the premiere of season 1, episode 1 of The Bad Batch, now in retrospect, having come as far as you have.
Dude, I love Star Wars. And I now love Star Wars animation, or I've come to love it. Look, I'm wearing the t-shirt, man. I got the t-shirt now, right? That sells it right there.
Yeah, this shows how far you've come.
Like you said, there's not new Star Wars, so we're doing a rewatch. And I think rewatches in general is like where the fun really begins with your relationship with a show. Like you watch it once and you could like it, you could not like it. You watch it again and you'll like it even more, or you start liking it even if you didn't like it. You pick up on new stuff. Just this summer, I was spending time with family and I watched A New Hope and The Empire Strikes Back with my 6-year-old nephew who'd never seen them before. And you're seeing it through their eyes and they're pointing out things and you're seeing it with a, not a fresh perspective, but to see that with somebody else that's never seen it before, you're like, oh yeah, that part, that's the best part's coming up here. Like, wait for this one line. And you also can kind of pick up new themes through that, the more subtleties, you start memorizing the dialogue, the musical cues, and I'm really excited to now have that experience with The Bad Batch, which season 1 I saw once, I binged it. We didn't do a review here where we didn't watch it 3 times in 1 week and then talk about it for an hour and, kind of parse our thoughts through the entire airing of the show. I just personally watched it and that was it. So I'm really excited, like I said, to have this conversation with you, whoever is maybe doing a rewatch along with us. That'll be really fun. Yeah, to get the fresh perspective and appreciate the series even more.
I love that. Yes. Here's hoping that we appreciate the series even more. I was born as a lover of Star Wars animation, right?
I merely adopted it.
Yeah, exactly. But it's always great to reflect back on a thing. Who knows what has been recontextualized? Who knows how we've changed and we might see things in a different way now. So there's so much that can go into it. That's the importance of the rewatch in general. Specifically, we're going to focus on The Bad Batch, but also hey, yes, watch along with us if you want. Throw on The Bad Batch. Super easy to watch and super fun and super good. We'll get to that. But also hey, maybe, maybe give Acolyte a try. I don't know. Maybe try again. I would, and I have. But yeah, that's the importance of doing these kinds of things. And I think importantly here with us, what is going to make this fun, at least for me and hopefully for the audience and hopefully for you too, Royce, is I'm going to be able to now sit back and watch you watch the thing. Which we have not gotten to do for this first season. And now that you are, like I said, fully in animation at this point, I think that's going to be a very fun thing for me to do and be able to point out and be see, obviously you've watched it, but we can then also continue to fanboy over Star Wars animation in general. Watching the introduction to the Bad Batch and the Clone Wars, the first couple episodes of season 7 of the Clone Wars. Did you connect with the characters at all then? Like, how was that? Like, for me, I didn't really connect with the characters at that point, but I'm curious for you as someone who was like dipping your toes in animation, I think at that point, how you felt.
Yeah, that's season 7, right? When that came out, it was clear that like, oh, that's back. You know, all the fans were stoked for that. I tried to be stoked for it because you were a big fan and you are the person telling me to watch it already so we can talk about it. And I gave it a shot.
It does sound like me.
I watched the first handful of episodes, but yeah, I didn't at the time connect with the Bad Batch. And also maybe that was kind of funny for like, I want to watch the Clone Wars, and I guess they're in the Clone Wars, but that was obviously them sort of setting them up for the future spin-off series. Not that that's a bad thing, but yeah, I certainly didn't connect immediately with them in that. And I probably didn't immediately connect with them when I did watch the Bad Batch, but you know, now again, it's going to be a whole story, you know, with this rewatch. They're kind of kooky Saturday morning characters, you know, if you're like,
ooh,
like at the time, you know, what else would have been airing around that? It would have been Mandalorian or something, because this was Disney Plus, right? So it might have been one season of Mando. So I was framing everything from live action and trying to compare that to animation and not being able to parse a difference there. And it didn't, at the time, meet my expectations.
Sure. I believe you may have described it as not kid-like, but not as meaty as live action.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, which, man,
Things change.
I hope that
Opinions
you've eaten
can
your
change.
words. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, even for me was not like super connected to these characters. I thought that they were cool, but I didn't have as much of a connection with them on the Echo Rescue mission episodes of the Clone Wars as I did obviously throughout the Bad Batch, or even honestly in this first episode. Because maybe they were like more kooky characters there, and it was kind of like the Clone Wars had been off air for a while, a good long while. And it comes back and introduces these like 4 new characters.
Right.
Which is great. Like there's stuff we don't get to see, you know, we never know what's going on in the rest of the galaxy. So there's obviously new characters out there somewhere, but it's hard to not feel like that Simpsons episode where they just shoehorn the...
Sometimes they add new characters just to spike the viewership.
Adding a new character is often a desperate attempt to boost low ratings.
Yo, how's it hanging, everybody?
Morning, Roy.
Yeah, hi, Roy.
Oh, how you doing, Roy?
Yeah, it's very much that, or it felt like that at the time. But I love that like walked so that the Bad Batch could run.
Hey, sometimes, you know, side characters, they become your favorite characters, the side characters sometimes, like Carson Teva. I'm like, I want to see a whole show. I want to see that, you know, Rangers of the Republic show or whatever with him as the lead. Like,
yeah,
he's got such a small role in Mando and in Ahsoka, but I'm like, I really like that guy, though. I want to see more. Some people probably felt that way about the Bad Batch. Like, oh, they deserve their own show. And of course they got it. But sometimes the cameo, like that Simpsons episode, there's no Poochie and there's no Roy in any of the other episodes. Maybe I'm wrong, but like that was specifically for a cameo purpose only, you know.
I have to go now. My planet needs me.
So to actually get into a little bit of the premiere, I think today we're mostly talking about the premiere, right? We're not talking about a bunch of episodes. We'll do one episode today.
Yeah, season 1, episode 1, Aftermath. Yep.
It starts with the logo of Clone Wars, and that burns away, and then the Bad Batch comes in, and we start with a scene from the Clone Wars and Order 66, which I think is really cool. It is an interesting way to frame the rest of the show and how the Bad Batch are like, we don't follow the orders. We're not like the other clones. But then it starts with the, you know, voiceover dialogue intro. Instead of a crawl, there's the voiceover that the Clone Wars does. That also doesn't really hit for me. I probably thought that was a little weird the first time I watched this, but they don't continue that. It's an interesting way that they designed the Bad Batch premiere to like transition you from the Clone Wars, but also interesting that people like me, that didn't matter for. We could have just jumped right into the scene, you know, when Star Wars pans down from space. I would have been totally happy with that. Pan out from the logo right down to the battle. And we could just jump into it. It's just a random kind of production thing I noticed that I could talk about for another 20 minutes, but...
Yeah, I love the production stuff. That's really funny because I always saw that, like, as an avid lover of the Clone Wars, I always saw that as a good, like, bridge.
Transition.
Right. Like, the logo burns away, which is cool. It's cool. Come on. It's a really cool thing.
It's not
makes
cool.
that transition. Yeah. And then the voiceover happens, which is like a classic Clone Wars, like every episode. And then they never do it again. So I just, I always thought of it as like a good transition in like season 1, episode 1, at least the first like 5 minutes are like the Clone Wars season 7B.
Right.
And then it's like it fades into the Bad Batch. It's so good how they connect it. It's not good in the set. Like the more we see of Order 66, the more it's really hard to watch what happens. It makes the scene with Deepa Balaba so much more emotional for me, knowing what all the other stuff is going on at that point in time and what we see of like who Caleb turns out to be later in Star Wars Rebels as Kanan Jarrus and how he regrets that situation. There's so many it's a web. There's so many connections to this one moment that ripples through the rest of the Star Wars that I know and love. And so that's such an important point in time. The Rebels story goes one way and the Bad Batch story goes another way. And it's just such a cool way to set up like that break in canon or that deviation in canon right there. I think it's so smart and I really love it. And it's also when we start to connect to the characters from the Bad Batch, since we didn't do that so well in the beginning. You and I should say, did not do that so well in the beginning of season 7. Yeah, I love this production stuff and the transition between the older series and the newer series wrapped up in stuff like that. It's interesting that you see it as I could have done without that.
Well,
and we could have just panned down in a more classic Star Wars way. They went classic Clone Wars TV show and less classic Star Wars, I guess.
There's other shows where they don't give you as much context and we just kind of jump in, like if there's no crawl. So the voiceover is the crawl in a sense, But yeah, I thought they really humanize Order 66 in that moment. Like in Revenge of the Sith, it's kind of a montage and you're like, I don't even know who half of these people are really. There's a lot of interesting scenes. The one with the Padawan at the temple protecting Bail. That one always gets me where he's like, no, when he flies away, like I don't love that moment, but that's a really powerful moment. And so this kind of does that. And that frames the point of time for me just fine that I know enough of the canon. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like I said, I could talk for 20 minutes on that alone.
There's so much production stuff here, though. Like, I think let's take an opportunity to talk about that. The transition into this new series, yes, like interesting that we never see that stuff come up again. But also now that we've watched like all 3 seasons of the Bad Batch, we can see how things change and how the animation improves and everything. And that's definitely something I was like looking through a critical eye at this episode. In Krypton to Alderaan's coverage of season 3, we talk about like the wide, beautiful shots, like hand-painted looking, incredible Bad Batch shots that we see in season 3. And we still have those in season 1. The quality of the animation has definitely improved from 1 to 3. So when Caleb jumps across the waterfall, the gorge, away from Hunter, we get a big, beautiful shot, waterfall in the background, Hunter on one side of the gorge, Caleb on the other side. It's like classic Bad Batch, beautiful animation shot, but it just, it's not as high of a quality of animation as we get to see later. So again, we're like recontextualizing stuff. It probably looked awesome at the time. Like there's no fault. I'm not finding fault in it. I'm just saying it's really fascinating to watch how the production value increases over time. Same thing happened with the Clone Wars.
Yeah, it's like going from the sequels back to the originals and you're like, whoa, this is a little odd, right? And there's still similarities between how they frame shots and, certain kind of movements that are very Star Warsian, but certainly the quality is wildly different. I noticed that too, that we still have these big expansive shots, but they don't feel quite as like high fidelity as I remember them from being in season 3. Season 3 looked incredible. Like that tentacle monster where, Omega's force training or whatever, that thing looked freaking awesome. There's a million other examples. Yeah, it's interesting how much you commit to memory. Like, this is what these characters or these landscapes look like now, most recently. And then to go back and be like, the characters don't quite look how I remember. And Omega's obviously kind of younger. They evolve the models over time or they age them up or whatnot. So I noticed that as well. And I don't know if that's a disconnect, but it is, whenever you notice the production and start thinking about that, I suppose that's not always the best, but yeah, that happens, right? Anytime you've tried to show someone that's never watched Star Wars, the entire canon, like you can't go from the prequels to the originals to the sequels without being like, yeah, this was made in 77. And, you know, it's just a totally different production. So, yeah, I'm with you on that.
Yeah.
Not a bad thing because it obviously improves and that's awesome. And I'm sure we'll get used to it by the end of this season. And then if we go to season 2 or 3, we're going to also see the improvement again, you know?
Yeah, it's definitely not a bad thing. It's just so interesting to watch happen. The amount of time and care that was put into the show to bring it from what we're seeing now in season 1 to what we will see in season 3, I think is the real important step there. Like, people love the show, people who work on, like, maybe animators always aren't treated very well, but people loved the show and a lot of care went into creating the show. And so we get to see that kind of stuff improve. I love talking about this production stuff. We should definitely do this more because it's really just like, again, it's the behind the scenes stuff that really connects me and hopefully some listeners out there. The way the show is made is so important. It enhances my appreciation for and enjoyment of the material.
Dude, I don't know if I've seen any behind the scenes content of how they animate the Bad Batch or Rebels, you know, or the Clone Wars. I would love to see some of that, or Tales, you know. There's so much animation now. There's clearly people working very hard to do it very well. Yeah, if anyone's listening, let's do a gallery on those shows. Like, it's great to get that for every show. Why don't we get that for animated? I would say that they're animated shows, dude, but they're cinematic in a lot of their production
100%,
value, right?
Yes.
So especially in the visuals and sound effects and everything, but like the whole package. This is the first time I noticed that the animated shows were like widescreen as well, you know? So that plays a role into like the perception of it, I guess. When you go to watch Rebels and it's more full screen, not full, but 14:9, not 16:9 or whatever, the ratio. And that feels more like, you know, broadcast TV, which it was with commercial breaks. Whereas this is on streaming, ultra wide, no commercials. In this first premiere episode, dude, I have to give it to the people in charge of runtime. It's an hour and 15 minutes, dude. It's the longest premiere of any Star Wars show, I'm pretty sure. You can fact check me, but like...
You would have to fact check you. You got all the numbers, man.
It's movie length, though, you know, almost. Did they approach this kind of like they approached the original Clone Wars movie leading into the shows? You know, like, oh, it'll be a couple of arcs smashed together. We'll put it out as a movie. We'll do the show. This wasn't a movie, but it kind of, the first episode sort of is a movie. You know, we learn all the characters. They go on an adventure. And then they become a family, and then they're out. Everyone has a happy ending, essentially, you know? But there's a little cliffhanger of like, well, what could happen next? But all the good guys get away.
Yeah, it is like, again, it's that transition from the show, from one show to the other show. And maybe we do have this like more cinematic length thing in order to, as the like the introduction, like you're saying.
Yeah, Battlestar Galactica, the movies before the show sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, super appreciative of like, reaching the halfway point of watching this episode and then realizing that there was still like another 30 minutes to go before we got to the end. And there's just so much to pack in there. I'm so, you know, where we're getting shows with 6 or 8 episode seasons and 30-minute, 20-minute run times. It's so great that they dedicated the time to this. And we've talked about this before on the production level. They seem to just have more flexibility with animation. The live action stuff just seems to be more constrained with that kind of stuff. But speaking of happy endings, something that we've discussed briefly on other episodes that we don't get to talk enough about is the music. We're talking about the production value increasing over time. Kevin Kiner's music is just always great. It's always great. It's timeless. It's perfect. It's Star Wars. It is like my Star Wars music. The music in this episode was also something I was paying attention to, but what we have discussed before, especially with season 3, is it would get to the end of the episode and you would notice like a motif or something that would like, or even with Mando season 3, the end of the episode, like a motif or something that would be like an uh-oh. Did we even call it that? I think
ending,
we call it like the uh-oh ending because of the music. So I'm curious if you paid attention to the music, you're the music guy, if you paid attention to the music this episode and what you think, because I don't know how to like judge what's going to like what decision Kiner is making musically when something is happening, but I know that I love his music.
Yeah. Dude, I mean, this is why you're rewarded on the rewatch. When you rewatch, you pick up on more dialogue. Like, how much dialogue did you miss in Andor? You know, you gotta rewatch it. You gotta put on subtitles. You're never getting it all immediately, right? And then you say, I didn't like it. You didn't even see half of the thing, you know?
Right.
And
right.
the music especially is easy to miss. Like, you subconsciously experience it the first time through. Like, maybe it influences your mood, but you're paying attention to the dialogue or a pew pew or something. And then on rewatch, you're like, oh, I recognize that theme. And then it's still subconsciously influencing you, but you also now know the cue, just like you know the dialogue. And then all of a sudden, like, everything connects, right? And so when they introduce the Bad Batch and like, okay, they're like one by one doing their like Power Rangers, like super move, you know, special move.
Yeah.
But they're playing the, you know, they're doing their kind of like marching theme in the background.
Yeah.
I apologize. I have no idea what the actual like themes are called in the score. I probably should know this, but I hear that. I'm like, okay, there's like the Bad Batch, like battle theme or whatever it's called. Fact check me in the comments. And then with Omega, they tease her more soft theme, you know, the I assume that's kind of more her theme. And that's just lightly teased. When they're in the prison, it gets real creepy. There's like an a cappella version of that theme that's almost in like a like harmonic minor mode or something. It feels more like something like you'd hear for a Sith or something like that. It's kind of odd, but it's her theme clearly on a completely different instrument in a slightly different framing of like melody, different mode, but it's her theme. And you never would notice that the first time you see it. But how many times have we heard, na, 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 you know, her theme. And so you connect all those and you're like, oh yeah, that's right. They're telling you something here. So yeah, I'm starting to notice the music more. How many scenes of Star Wars do you like, not quoting the dialogue like you would at like Rocky Horror or something, but you know the next musical cue and you like almost sing along with that, you know? And how many little moments like R2-D2 on Tatooine or something, there's a little flute thing or whatever, and you're like, I know that's coming up. Yeah, I'm stoked to now notice the music more and appreciate it more. The themes are great. And I also really love a lot of Kiner's like droid battle marching music reminds me so much of the droid invasion on Naboo. And I think I mentioned this on one of our episodes, doing one of the reviews. It might have been like the season premiere of early on in season 2, I think. There's an episode where they're sneaking around on a planet and they're playing something that sounds like the droid invasion on Naboo. And I'm like, yes, I love this like Star Wars poetry moment of it rhyming with itself. And it doesn't have to be, you know, I got a bad feeling about this or a ship or something. Like it can be a musical cue as well.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point that we also like subconsciously look for those things as in, you know, we're talking about in Star Wars, maybe in any fandom, you know, where I know where those are coming in Jurassic Park, right? Like those very also like John Williams thing is like, we're waiting for that. But the music, the production, the animation quality, the sets all enhance the experience, even subconsciously. And like that we're waiting for that music to happen. Like I am waiting for Omega's theme. And it's almost like Hunter can hear it.
Ooh,
like
I love that.
When she's behind him, each time she's behind him, like once in the corridor, he almost like is called to notice her when she's up there, up in the thing with Tarkin. And then again, when they're going on the Onderon insurgency mission, she's behind him. Part of my headcanon is that however he's like sensing her is like, it's almost like he can pick up on that as well. And then her theme starts playing.
Well, see, that's great, you know, arranging and composition or scoring, you know, film scoring, like the music becomes a character. So he's not just scoring like the scene, he's scoring the way that that character is even acting in that scene. I love it. I would have never thought about that. That's such a cool way to frame it though. Like the music is him hearing Omega or sensing Omega. Awesome.
Yeah, I love that also. And because, not just because it's my idea. But it's also great, like, I don't know, like, it's just so epic where it needs to be epic. It's soft where it needs to be soft, right? Like, yes, that is probably, like, standard operating procedure, but also sometimes it doesn't work that way. And again, the level of consideration and care that is given to this animated show. No punches are pulled here. And I think Kiner's music is just some of the best music in Star Wars. Season 7 Clone Wars soundtrack is a masterpiece. and he's just very good at like making me feel the way I want to feel when I watch a Star Wars thing through his music. And just to jump to the end as we're talking about this production
Classic
stuff, like
Krypton
it is
all
the
around.
most, it is the most perfect ending. It is the most perfect ending to a Star Wars show, like maybe a premiere, whatever. It is a perfect ending all by itself. Hunter says, strap in, kid, you're not going to want to miss this. The music like started off real low. The music's, her theme starts to swell, and Tech hits the hyperdrive, and then you see like the reflection of the hyperdrive in her eyes. She's never been anywhere. She doesn't know there's this much green in the entire galaxy, whatever that line is from Rey. It's just such an incredible ending, and made that way in large part by the music and the way that the music is entered into the scene.
Yeah.
So I love that we get to like go back in time to review this show and have, take the time to talk about this production stuff. It might not be something that everyone wants to hear, but I think it is important, and it's worth giving flowers to, because these people work very hard to create this show and care about this show. I think that deserves, our appreciation and respect. And it's also very good. It's also very, very good stuff. I think it'll be also interesting to continue to think about and look out for changes in themes. Like Crosshair's theme might change as he becomes more of like an Imperial soldier and a villain. I do not remember connecting with that or connecting that at all in my previous rewatches.
Oh, because he has the bwah. He has some kind of like sound effect. I don't know if it's a theme, but it's a like synth drone.
Yeah, as he becomes more and more evil, we'll see if that changes.
There's a meaty connection there, dude. When they're doing can you enhance the inhibitor chip's function? I don't know if that's the same device from, is that Mando when they're
with Dr. Pershing?
Yeah, with Pershing, right?
Yeah.
That's obviously like a similar device, if not the same thing. And I'm like, oh man, that's so insane that like the Empire, or I guess that's the Republic, like, but that this technology exists, right? And so there's like a little connection there, right? What Joey said at the beginning of the episode, me saying animation isn't meaty enough, is like, that's null and void, dude. Like, the animation,
I agree.
It fills in the somehow. It makes everything else. Like, it is the meat, really, if anything.
And yeah, Dr. Pershing did work with the cloners.
Right. Where do you think they got it from?
It's entirely possible that piece of equipment is a retrofitted, and the point of that episode, which is an episode of Mando Season 3 that I actually like, the point of that episode is
reintegration.
Empire, reintegration, but also like Empire, Republic, what's the difference is with literally a line that somebody says in that episode. So wouldn't be surprised if they're using the same devices for, not great means.
Yeah.
Along with paying attention to how the production value is changing and maybe the music motifs change and evolve over time. Going back now and knowing what we've know at getting to season 3 and seeing the series of its entirety as we have, it will be also great to go back and watch these characters change and evolve over time. I love these characters. I love what they become. And now we're going to get to go back and watch it. There's a lot of mystery in this, on the offset of getting into this series. Enhanced clones, who's Omega, what's special about her? Why can she shoot that blaster right and hit it square on the target in the first try? She says she got lucky. She can kind of sense that Crosshair is coming when they're in that thing. So what's up with her? There's so much mystery, like Crosshair's chip, all that kind of stuff that we're going to get to go through again now and see it, knowing that he has one of the best redemption arcs in all of Star Wars, according to me.
Wow, yeah.
We get to see this crew turn from this band of brothers, which clones are, but Clone Force 99, watching this episode now, I did not connect with how much how much sibling energy they actually have at the beginning of this series versus more towards the end, where a couple of them become the father figures to Omega, right? And so it's going to be really great to watch all of that happen as well. Did you notice any changes in their going back in time, watching them interact with each other now versus the end of the series?
Yeah, because you kind of know what to expect from each character and the kind of situations they get into or the types of conversations and back and forth they have. The first time through, you're learning who everybody is. You don't have this deep relationship. So it's kind of confusing. Like, I think it shows like Lost where there's like 20 main characters, all with their own crazy backstories. And you really have to get to know them. And there's not 20 characters here. And they don't have that much backstory that you have to learn, but they're still new to you. And you still have to be like, okay, Hunter has the senses, Tech's really smart. And they do make that very clear up front. But now we have the history there to just know this is that person's archetype. And yeah, I see the sibling energy and how they all kind of tease each other to like different degrees. Like it feels real the way that they've kind of designed them together. The sibling energy is a great way to put it. What I love most about it is when Omega sits down and they're all like, you want to sit with us? Like nobody wants to sit with us. And she says, I like you. You don't fit in here either. And that's like the whole show and like why it's so fun to like be a part of the Bad Batch as you, like a viewer, It reminds me of things like the X-Men where like every character is a weirdo with a unique ability, but like they're all weirdos together. So no one's kind of weird. And like, I love the X-Men and I never equated that. I just realized this literally rewatching the episode a little bit this morning. I watched it a couple of times. That kind of endears me to them even further that you're like, yeah, Wrecker is like not the smartest bulb, but he's capable and he's like a really loving, caring person. And, Tech's smart, but like kind of like quippy, you understand them and they're all a little bit weird. And then Omega comes in. And she's kind of weird because, like, she's this little girl clone in the rest of these, like, army dudes. It's so weird. She doesn't fit in at all,
Right.
And even, like, the Kaminoans are, like, a weird species. None of this makes any sense.
Right.
So, what do you think about that? All the clones, like... being X-Men with their unique abilities. And what is Omega's ability in that,
Right. I love that analogy to the X-Men. What I love, if you've listened to our show, and what I think is like a pillar of Star Wars for me is the found family aspect of Star Wars. And that is so, so strong here. I think the benefit of the rewatch is like my first couple of times watching the introduction to this team through the premiere, I've been focused probably a lot like Tarkin or the Empire. I focused solely on their like enhancements and that being the story, that being the driver of the story. This time watching it through, also a couple of times before we recorded, really focusing on like the personalities that they give these characters right off the get-go. And high sibling energy, especially like between Hunter and Crosshair, like vying to be the kind of like older sibling, and then Wrecker and Tech being like the younger siblings fighting, like, you're not putting those explosives by my bed again, that kind of stuff. And then, so because like the Regs, clones are bred as brothers. They're supposed to be brothers. They're supposed to be loyal. They look out for each other. But the Regs have such a prejudice against Clone Force 99. So their own brothers are kind of like pushing them off to the side. And so they are their own little found family in the middle of this family that was created for them, genetically exactly the same as brothers. They are like insulated from that, but surrounded by it. And to have this other person come in that's also like unbeknownst to them at the onset, like essentially one of them, but they like, she wants to be part of the team. She knows that they are her family because she was created the same way and she likes them. I just love that kind of maybe slight twist on the found family aspect here of within Star Wars. Like Kanan takes Ezra, Obi-Wan takes Luke, Han, Leia, all the found family stuff that is in Star Wars. But this is a family that's surrounded by people that are supposed to be their family, but don't want them in their family. And they form their own little tight-knit group.
Yeah, and it's a family adopting one person rather than kind of the other way around. I guess like other Star Wars shows sort of do that.
Yeah, Rebels is kind of the same way, but they each came from somewhere else. They found each other. They all had a story that connected them. These brothers are surrounded by their other brothers, but their other brothers like don't want anything to do with them because they're prejudiced against them.
There is a quote though when they're battling that someone's like, "Oh, it's the Bad Batch is here." There's some kind of like respect there on the battlefield. Somebody notices that like, "Oh, that this means something. Like these guys are crazy." I don't know
Right.
how they were trying to write that dialogue. So there might be some kind of like respect that they're good in the battle, you know, but then when they're in the mess hall, they're like, but we don't hang out with them because they're weird.
Another member of the Sad Batch. Like it's so hard to watch because of 7 seasons of the Clone Wars and falling in love with the clones. It's really hard to watch when the regs are prejudiced against Clone Force 99. Like I put those characters on such a pedestal with like Rex and Echo and Fives and all of the characters that we got to know in the Clone Wars, but they're kind of like anybody else, where if someone's different, they don't like them, even if it's like related to them. And we did see a little bit of that in the Clone Wars with 99, Clone 99, who was a deformed clone, and he was treated badly by the other clones, and that's
He was
who
like the
Clone Force
custodian,
99
right? Or something like that.
Yeah. And he ended up being a hero. But yeah, so that's why Clone Force 99 named themselves after him. Yeah, anyway, just great, like a great kind of new twist on the found family. Heartbreaking, I think, now watching it this time, really like pointing out how there's so much prejudice. Like Tarkin hates clones, the regs hate Clone Force 99. There's a lot of like prejudice going on. Just that aspect I think is going to make it so much more solid of a foundation for me to watch how they continue to grow their found family.
Yeah, you've always said like every clone has its own kind of personality, and that's part of the fun of watching the Clone Wars is getting to know them. And the Bad Batch, like their personalities are like inherent. It's not like they kind of grow them over time, even though of course a personality does develop, but like theirs are very pre-developed because of their, you know, defects and whatnot. I'm surprised we were not talking about Omega though. The whole point of season 3, you know, is like she's got a high M count, lots of midichlorians, like maybe an ideal candidate for cloning. Like you said, the mystery, this is never fully explained, but that's part of it, right? And then Lama Sue's like hiding her blood samples because she's special, right? So
Nala Se,
yeah. I don't fact check us in the comments. And so I love that you pointed out, like, okay, she knew Crosshair might have been coming. Like, was that because she sensed Crosshair, like Hunter? She takes the shot. Like, is that because she's a good shot, like Crosshair? Like, she's got good hand-to-eye coordination or like really good eyesight or something. And she might not be like strong like Wrecker, but like she's a fighter. She's not afraid to like, she throws the sandwich at the other reg clone, right? And she's also like kind of witty and smart like Tech. So she's got like a little bit of everyone's qualities, and also this M count thing, which really throws it for like, so she's force sensitive. I don't know, you know, like I'm going to frame, I guess I should ask you, like, do you think like you're going to pick up on that? Is it some way that you want to frame the way that you're watching her? Because I am.
Yeah, I think I always did that with her and Hunter.
Like you knew she was special?
From that first scene where she takes the shot and that they are enhanced clones, like there's a little bit of exposition where like Tech is going through telling them about their program, like the regs programming and conditioning, and he says, you know, something about like your impressive strength, Wrecker, and my my
Superior
impressive mind or
intellect.
something. Yeah. So it is built into them. Like it's very clear that it is built into them, and it might not necessarily have anything to do with like force sensitivity or stuff. But then it also becomes clear that maybe the cloners were experimenting with that stuff anyway, and that the like result of that is Omega. Either way, she's like a good candidate for, you know, cloning Palpatine later. We see that in season 3, but I think I've always watched the show as with the question mark of, is she force sensitive? Is Hunter force sensitive? Because he's got like the heightened senses. You know, he can always like tell when someone else, like that she's behind him or that the probe droid is there and stuff like that. But she does make that shot in the first episode, and I think that was the real like moment of this premiere of being like, how did she do that? Will we explore that? And then we really don't. And then she gets the crossbow and can't really use it.
Okay.
So that's the point where I'm like, okay, maybe that is in part tapping into her enhancement, or maybe it was just luck. I don't know. But there are moments where like she misses or like can't fire the bow. So there's a little bit of like back and forth there, and the skills need to be, we know now that like if you do have the Force, it needs to be practiced in order to like, for you to maintain it or for it to develop. And she doesn't really get the chance to do that. I think like it's always something I look out for in all of these, like, oh, is Din Djarin Force sensitive? You know, whatever. We're always looking out for that because it's Star Wars. But yeah, specifically with her, especially with what we know now. But it doesn't sound like you were doing that the whole time in previous watches. So it will be interesting that will be another interesting thing to see through your eyes this time.
Yeah, it's hard to be objective about like, here's what I thought originally. Like, I have no idea. I watched this 4 years ago, you know?
Yeah.
I would imagine that I thought something to the effect of like, she's just, you know, the cute main character that we're supposed to like see the show through her eyes. Like, this is my first time anywhere, you know? I love that scene. But now knowing that she's so important in that they're trying to hide her, that she's that important, the whole like, oh, there's only 5 defective clones left. And like, you're assuming that Echo is one of them and not Omega. But of course, she becomes really important later, and they send bounty hunters after her and everything. And
yeah, it's not going to be far from this episode. I'm excited to continue because it's not far from this episode that the bounty hunters like Fennec Shan and Cad Bane show up, and like they don't waste any time in letting us know that Omega is important to the Kaminoans. So I really appreciate that aspect of the mystery is not drawn out so far, but obviously other aspects of the mystery are. But it like, the action continues. We do have these like one-off missions, but we also very quickly come to understand that the Kaminoans are on the hunt to get Omega back.
yeah, dude, I love that you skipped ahead a little bit because I forgot about that. I was remembering that bounty hunters come after her, but I think it's because she's got the Generation 1 DNA or whatever they assume.
Yeah.
But so that's like red herring or something. Like, that's one possibility, but it's actually because she's a Force sensitive clone or whatever your own theory is. Like, or if they just changed that by the time they got to season 3, that they're like, well, now we've got to make this. What is Rise of Skywalker been out by then? Well, must have been. You know, well, now we're going to tie it in.
Yeah.
What about Saw Gerrera?
Yeah. You want to talk about Saw Gerrera? This is my biggest. It's funny to put this late in the episode or in the episode at all. But dude, it is such a bummer. It's really, he is, for me, the biggest bummer character in all of Star Wars. Like, such potential. I think Saw Gerrera goes the opposite way for me as other characters. Like, the more I see of other characters, the more their story is enhanced and I become more connected with them. The more I see of Saw Gerrera's story go forward, the less I'm into it. Like, super into him in the Clone Wars and being taught how to fight back by Rex and Anakin and Ahsoka. Super into him right here where he is saying, we are not going to bend the knee. The Clone Wars are over, but a civil war is beginning. You have to choose a side. Like, he's so in charge and in control of his mind and his purpose. Clarity. He has clarity of purpose at this point, and we just see it go so downhill. Like, he had such potential to be, and what I do like this is the beginning of his rebellion. This is the beginning of Saw's rebellion. Hunter says, with limited people and firepower, you don't have a chance. And he says, not alone, we don't, or something like that. Like, he's forming his group. Right. But we just see it take such a turn. And we want nothing to do with his arm of the rebellion by the time we get to season 2 of Andor.
Yeah.
So it's a huge bummer, man. Huge bummer. What do you think about Saw Gerrera?
Yeah, I still have to get to know his backstory in the Clone Wars. So this is another, like, I guess I don't have full context, but it's interesting because he's crazy. You called him a loon in Andor, you know? Let it run wild. That's freedom calling. Breathe it in. And like you said, he's kind of in control of his faculties here. He's not quite crazy yet. That's, 10 years down the line or 20 years, whatever that is. Much later in time. I kind of like that. He's not so crazy yet, and you can that's his arc. That's just what it is. I don't like how they wrote this character. well, that's what it is. So you have to find some
Yeah.
way to appreciate that. But I do love the idea of a Krypton to Alderaan viral video essay, the biggest bummer character in all of Star Wars.
I have lots of bullet points for that regarding Saw Gerrera.
He's interesting to me for some reason. Like maybe because he is so wild. Like he's not a boring character. You know, you're like,
No.
what is this guy gonna do? I guess I could see how the more you see of him, it's ruining maybe like what you want the character to be. Like, you know, do the right thing. You know, and he doesn't. He says in this episode, "Adapt or die. The decision is yours." And like, maybe that's also some poetry for him. Like he adapts, but he like kind of loses himself in the way that he adapts to the circumstances.
That's very good.
You know?
Yeah.
So that's going to be how I choose to look at that. But I am bummed we didn't see more of him in Andor. I wish we got one more, you know, clash with him on a mission that went wrong or something. I guess we got enough because his character is pretty easy to size up that he's just crazy and the rebellion wants nothing to do with him. But I wouldn't mind seeing more. I like him. But I guess I should watch Clone Wars and then we can rehash this for the biggest bummer character.
There's not like it's not a ton of him in the Clone Wars, but you know, his story starts there and we see it. And this is all just me. This is me saying I wanted the character to go a specific way, or I saw a lot of potential in the character being a leader of the rebellion and really thought that that's what they were setting. He's in the Clone Wars. He's in this. He's in Star Wars Rebels. He's in Jedi Fallen Order. He's in everything. And then we get to Andor and Rogue One, and it kind of like it has broken his mind. Living in nothing but war has broken his mind.
But maybe this is important that we see him fall from grace, you know? He doesn't really get a redemption arc, but he's important though, you know? You wouldn't have gotten the Death Star plans without him giving the message to Jyn. So, you know, in the end, he does kind of serve the purpose he needs to serve for the galaxy. He just does it as a loon.
He gets the opposite of a redemption arc, I think I would say. But also, let's not forget, I don't want to like spoil anything for anyone listening to this episode of the podcast that hasn't watched the entirety of the Bad Batch. But he is pretty single-handedly responsible for the death of one of my favorite characters in this show. So I got a grudge, you know? I've just got a grudge.
So this is a good segue. Like, I'm stoked to have all the main characters there and be able to like get more time with them. Cause like you said, you're like, oh, someone dies and like that's the end of that story unless we get flashbacks or something, or they're a Force ghost, and not necessarily in this case. So it's cool to be back with like the whole gang. And dude, Wrecker's my favorite, man. Like they're all fun in different moments, but the whole like you were mentioning Tech saying how they're programmed to, you know, be the way they are. And then Wrecker protesting like, I like to blow things up because I like to blow things up. Got it? It's just like...
And then Crosshair's like, well, I'm convinced. Like, just the levels of sense of humor and comedy relief there, like very juvenile to very dry. Yeah.
I don't think I appreciated that as much on the first time through, but now I'm like, I just love Wrecker. You know, I just think he's neat. All of his dialogue is great. Like, you mean we could punch our way out? Shh. What, you mean we could punch our way out? I hate hand signals. You know, everything, every scene or every like little like retort he has is just fun.
He's got so many good lines, but he's also like just a sweetheart. He's looking for his Lula. He is just inherently loyal and kind, and he like automatically sticks up for Omega because she just stood up for them in the mess hall. He is a perfect, we could do a whole video essay on how he's just a perfect character with all the perfect traits. Like you said, might not be the brightest bulb, but you know, me either, but I guess me either, but people enjoy being around me. So that's not nothing.
Well, cause you're a funny guy, you know, so that
he's a funny guy. Wrecker and Tech, man. Yeah, this is a fun thing to do on the way out of the door here. Like, who are our favorite characters? And I wonder if that will change or fluctuate as we continue to watch this show. So that's a question for us and also a question for the audience. if we want to put it to them, but right here, right now, again, I am influenced by the 3 seasons of this show, but Wrecker and Tech certainly top tier favorite characters. Whereas the first time I watched this show, I remember being like Wrecker by far favorite character. But now knowing what I know about Tech, he's up there as well. So we'll see how that goes back and forth as we continue along. It's funny that like neither of our favorite characters are kind of the more main character, like Hunter or Omega.
Yeah. I mean, I don't see myself in like a Hunter, like you were mentioning, like maybe Hunter is force sensitive. Like I always looked at him like Wolverine, you know, that he could like smell things like an animal sort of, you know.
100%. Yeah.
And yeah, I don't, you know, I like camping and having a campfire and like whittling a stick, but like, no, I'm not, I'm not to that level of animal senses. And, you know, I not really into being a sniper. Like what's relatable about Crosshair? He's insufferable. You know, it's kind of hard to empathize with him at this point in the game.
100%.
Dude, but what the show does well, you have Omega and she says, you know, it's not your fault, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, that hits harder having seen the whole series that like from the jump, she is on Crosshair's side, you know? Mm-hmm. And also from the jump, like Hunter is protecting Omega. So it's great. Like they give you some of those nuggets up front. They clearly knew the directions they wanted to push all these characters in, you know, the themes they wanted to explore with them. And yeah, I wouldn't say that like I see myself as Omega either. It's fun to see the world through her eyes where, like you said, I've never seen so much green in this galaxy. Everything's new to her, so that's fun. But of course, like, Wrecker's just the life of the party. That's pretty easy to see yourself in. And Tech is like nerdy and curious. So I think I'm with you that those are kind of our archetypes more so than anybody else on the show.
It's very true. You bring up a good point, and I think this is also a good hook because I, for the longest time, was against Crosshair having a redemption arc. And then season 3 hit, and I'm like, this is the greatest redemption arc in all of Star Wars. So we should keep an eye out for that as well and how that progresses, because a lot of it isn't his fault, and then a lot of it is his fault. But then the relatability of maybe him feeling alienated or even outside the group of his own brothers that were this family, I think as we like now going back and watching out for that stuff, because at one point he says, I got rid of my inhibitor chip, but he's still like against them. Looking out for why he made the choices that he made along the way and trying to relate to that because we know he has a redemption arc. He's not just like evil to the end. We see that there is good in him, so let's watch out for that going forward.
Yeah, if we can try to empathize with him in these episodes, what are his redeeming qualities? Like, if any, or maybe there's just not. That's why you didn't want to see redemption, because you're like, there's no possibility for it.
Yeah.
But is there?
It's hard
subtly
to see.
Hinted.
He tries to burn them with the engine of a ship. Like, it's hard to get past that. It's really, really hard, I think, to get past that for me. But yeah, we'll see.
So, listeners, we want to know, are you excited to rewatch Bad Batch with us? We hope that you'll give it another shot and let us know. Get down in the comments. Let's continue the conversation. You know, what are you noticing between the music, the production, you know, character development, who your favorite characters are, favorite moments? I think this will be fun. You know, like we have to go back and rewatch these things and appreciate them. And even just one episode here, it's like, wow, there's so much in this universe to love. And yeah, why not go back and love it some more? So
agreed.
We're excited to keep this going. We're excited for you to come along with us. So hit subscribe. Make sure to tune in next time for more nerdy pop culture, but mostly Star Wars. Thanks for watching the show today. I've been Royce.
I've been Caleb Doom.
And we've been Krypton.
Krypton to
all
color.
Krypton to Alderaan. Krypton to Alderaan.
We did it. Nailed it in 1 hour.
Yeah, not bad.